Hello, and welcome to Lyla's Lullabies, where we spend time exploring with Lyla, a traveler who wanders the world at her own pace, while sharing her most enriching and restorative moments with you. In tonight's story, we'll follow Lyla and her friends as they celebrate the distinctive North American city of New Orleans. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to remember. Just settle in, get comfortable, and let yourself go. We're so glad you're here. Whenever you're ready, let's begin. The April morning in New Orleans was already warm, the air thick with humidity, even at 8 a.m. Lyla stood on the balcony of their French Quarter hotel, looking down at Royal Street as it slowly came to life. Shopkeepers sweeping sidewalks, a street musician setting up his saxophone case, the smell of coffee and beignets drifting from somewhere nearby. Coffee? Marina appeared with 2 cups from the hotel lobby. "Bless you," Lyla said, accepting gratefully. The others emerged gradually, and soon all 5 were gathered on the balcony, watching the quarter wake up. The friendship between the 5 of them, Lyla, Marina, Beth, Claire, and Josie, went back to college days and shared apartments and late-night conversations that had solved the world's problems. Life had scattered them across different cities, different careers, different paths, but the bond had remained, and these days the glue were these meetups when they each took turns choosing an amazing global location. Choosing New Orleans was a piece of cake. They couldn't remember who had suggested it first. "This is nice," Beth said. "I mean, I love Mardi Gras, but it's nice to be here without the chaos, experience the city." "That was the plan," Claire said. "New Orleans without the crowds, actually be able to see things, talk to people, not just get swept along in a parade." "So what's first?" Josie asked. "Café du Monde for breakfast," Marina said. "Then St. Louis Cemetery number 1, maybe the French Market. Lunch somewhere in the Bywater. Afternoon we could walk through Treme, see some of the historic neighborhoods. Dinner and music on Frenchmen Street tonight." "Love it," Claire said. "Let's light this candle, ladies," Marina said. After showering and some light primping, they walked to Café du Monde, joining the line of early morning visitors. The iconic green and white striped awning was as distinctive in person as in photos, and when they finally got their order, beignets and café au lait, they found seats at one of the outdoor tables. The beignets were fresh and hot, covered in an absurd amount of powdered sugar that got everywhere despite their best efforts. The coffee was strong and chicory-laced, the milk cutting the bitterness perfectly. "I'm going to need about 10 more of these," Beth said, biting into her second beignet. "Pace yourself," Josie laughed. "We have a whole day of eating ahead." A woman at the next table overheard and smiled. "Y'all visiting?" "We are," Marina said. "First time for most of us." "Welcome to New Orleans. You picked a good time. April is nice. Not too hot yet, and past all the spring break craziness. You get to see the real city, not just the party version." "Any recommendations?" Claire asked. "Everything everyone tells you to see is worth seeing," the woman said. "But also just walk around, get lost in the neighborhoods, talk to people. The best parts of New Orleans are the parts you can't plan for. They just happen. After breakfast, they walked to St. Louis Cemetery Number 1, the oldest cemetery in New Orleans. The above-ground tombs were distinctive, white stone structures like small houses, required because the city's below sea level location made traditional burial impossible. Their tour guide was a local historian named Marcus, a man in his 60s with encyclopedic knowledge and a gift for storytelling. New Orleans is a city built on water, he explained as they entered the cemetery. We're below sea level, surrounded by the Mississippi River and Lake Pontchartrain. So we bury our dead above ground. These tombs are essentially ovens. The Louisiana heat cremated the bodies naturally, allowing families to reuse the same tomb for generations. He led them through the narrow aisles between tombs, pointing out famous residents. Homer Plessy of Plessy versus Ferguson, several voodoo practitioners, and the supposed tomb of Marie Laveau, covered in X marks left by visitors seeking her blessing. People still practice voodoo here, Marcus said. It's part of our cultural mix, West African traditions blending with Catholicism. New Orleans has always been a gumbo of cultures. French, Spanish, African, Native American, Creole, Cajun, everything mixed together. What about Katrina? Beth asked. How did the cemetery survive? Marcus's expression grew more serious. Katrina changed everything. This cemetery was mostly okay. It's on higher ground. But other cemeteries flooded, tombs damaged. In the city, well, you'll see as you walk around. Some neighborhoods rebuilt, some didn't. Some people came back, some couldn't afford to. It's still an open wound in a lot of ways. After the cemetery, they wandered through the French market, a long covered market selling everything from fresh produce to tourist souvenirs. They bought pralines from a vendor who'd been making them the same way for 40 years, watched a blacksmith demonstrate traditional ironwork, browsed through stalls selling hot sauce and Cajun spices. You ladies hungry yet? A food vendor called out. Got the best jambalaya in the quarter right here. We had beignets for breakfast, Claire protested. That was hours ago, he countered, grinning. Come on, just a taste. They ended up with a small container to share. The jambalaya, spicy and complex, loaded with shrimp and sausage and the holy trinity of Creole cooking, onion, celery, and bell pepper. For lunch, they took a streetcar to the Bywater neighborhood, a residential area east of the French Quarter, known for colorful shotgun houses and a thriving art scene. They found a restaurant in a converted house, its walls covered in local artwork, and ordered po' boys and red beans and rice. This neighborhood feels different, Josie observed, looking out at the street. Quieter, more residential. The Bywater got hit hard by Katrina, their server said, overhearing. A lot of the original residents couldn't come back, couldn't afford to rebuild. So artists and young people moved in, fixed up the houses. Now it's gentrifying, which is good and bad. Good because the neighborhood is alive again. Bad because the people who lived here for generations can't afford it anymore. That's complicated, Marina said. That's New Orleans, the server replied with a shrug. Everything here is complicated. We're still figuring out what the city looks like post-Katrina, almost 20 years later. After lunch, they walked through Treme, one of the oldest African-American neighborhoods in the country. The area was historically significant, the birthplace of jazz, home to Congo Square, where enslaved people had been allowed to gather and play music on Sundays, maintaining their African cultural traditions. They found Congo Square, now part of Louis Armstrong Park. Information plaques explain the history, how this space had been crucial for cultural preservation, how the rhythms played here had evolved into jazz, how the neighborhood had been the heart of Black New Orleans culture. A group of musicians were playing near the square, brass instruments and drums, the sound unmistakably New Orleans. People had gathered to listen, some dancing, others just swaying to the rhythm. An older man stood near them, watching the musicians with a smile. After a moment, he spoke. "This neighborhood, Treme, it's special. Always has been. Jazz was born here, you know. Not in the French Quarter, not in the clubs on Bourbon Street. Here in Treme, in Congo Square. Folks making music, keeping traditions alive." "Do you live in the neighborhood?" Lyla asked. "All my life, 72 years. Seen it change, seen it struggle. Katrina was hard. We lost people, lost houses, lost culture. But we're still here, still making music, still keeping the traditions. That's what New Orleans does. We endure." They talked with him for several minutes. He told them about the neighborhood's history, recommended a restaurant his cousin owned, explained the different styles of New Orleans music. His pride was evident, as was his concern about gentrification and displacement. "Young people moving in, that's fine," he said. "New blood, new energy. But they need to respect what was here before, understand the history. This isn't just a cute neighborhood with colorful houses. This is where jazz came from. That means something." They walked through more of Treme, seeing the shotgun houses painted in bright colors, the second lines of porches, the corner stores and small churches. The neighborhood had a lived-in feel, families on porches, kids playing in yards, a sense of community that was palpable. As the afternoon moved toward evening, they made their way to Frenchmen Street, the music district where locals actually went, as opposed to the tourist-heavy Bourbon Street. Even before sunset, the street was alive, music pouring from every club, people spilling onto sidewalks, street performers setting up. They found a spot at an outdoor bar, ordered local beer, and settled in to watch the scene. A brass band was playing at the corner. Tuba, trombone, trumpet, drums, the sound big and brassy and irresistible. People danced in the street, and the musicians fed off the energy, playing harder, faster, the music building. "This is what I came for," Lyla said, watching the band. "Live music, just happening, part of the fabric of daily life." They hopped between clubs, a venue with a traditional jazz trio, another with a funk band that had the whole room dancing, a small bar where a solo guitarist played blues so raw and emotional it raised goosebumps. The music was everywhere, different styles, all coexisting, all undeniably New Orleans. For dinner, they found the restaurant the man in Treme had recommended, a small place with checkered tablecloths and a menu of Creole classics. They ordered family style, gumbo and étouffée, fried catfish and dirty rice, collard greens and cornbread. "This is incredible," Beth said, tasting the gumbo. "How is everything so flavorful?" "Seasoning and time," their server said. "Good Creole cooking can't be rushed. That gumbo's been simmering since yesterday, building flavor. That's how we do it." After dinner, full and happy, They wandered back to Frenchmen Street. The evening was in full swing now, the street packed with people, music louder, energy higher. They found a club with a second-line band, the kind of music played at New Orleans funerals and celebrations, driving rhythms meant for dancing in the street. The club was crowded, but the mood was joyful, everyone moving to the music, the band playing with obvious pleasure. A couple near them was teaching others how to second-line dance, the distinctive New Orleans strut, parasols waving, bodies moving to the beat. "Come on," Marina said, pulling them into the dance. "When in New Orleans." They second-lined awkwardly at first, laughing at themselves, but the rhythm was infectious, and soon they were moving with the crowd, parasols borrowed from strangers, everyone dancing together in that uniquely New Orleans way, where tourists and locals mixed, and no one cared who was who, everyone just there for the music and the joy. Later, sweaty and exhausted in the best way, they found a quieter bar with a jazz quartet playing standards. They ordered drinks and settled into a corner, content to just listen. The pianist was remarkable. Old, his hands gnarled but still fluid on the keys, playing with a lifetime of experience evident in every note. During a break, he came over to the bar near where they were sitting. "Y'all enjoying the music?" he asked. "Very much," Claire said. "You're incredible." "Been playing these songs for 50 years, he said with a smile. "You play something that long, you find new things in it. That's what I love about jazz. It's never the same twice. Always evolving, always new." "How has the music scene changed since Katrina?" Lyla asked. His expression grew more thoughtful. "We lost people. Musicians who couldn't come back, who scattered to other cities. We lost venues. We lost that density of music that made New Orleans special. But music is stubborn. It survived. Musicians came back, new venues opened. It's different than before, but it's still alive. Music is what this city is. You can't kill it." They talked with him for a while longer, about jazz history, about the New Orleans music scene, about his 50 years of playing in clubs across the city. His love for the music and for New Orleans was evident in every word. When the band started their next set, he returned to the piano and they listened as he played St. James Infirmary Blues, the song mournful and beautiful, carrying the weight of all the history they'd learned about during the day. Finally, well after midnight, they made their way back to their hotel. The French Quarter was quieter now, though music still drifted from a few remaining open bars. The April night was warm and humid, the air heavy with the scent of jasmine and the river. Back at the hotel, they gathered on the balcony one more time, looking down at Royal Street, now mostly empty except for a street sweeper and a couple walking hand in hand. "This city," Beth said, "it's like nowhere else." "It really isn't," Marina agreed. "The history, the music, the food, the way everything's mixed together." "Like jambalaya," she smiled. "The resilience, too," Josie added. "Hearing people talk about Katrina, about coming back, about rebuilding, that takes grit and character." They sat quietly for a while, processing the day, the cemetery with its unique burial traditions, the French market's mix of practical and tourist commerce, the complicated story of the Bywater, the cultural significance of Treme and Congo Square, the endless music on Frenchmen Street, the conversations with locals who'd shared their city's story, the joy and the pain, the survival and the loss. Eventually, they said goodnight and dispersed. Lyla stayed on the balcony a bit longer, listening to the city. Even now, she could hear music. Somewhere, a trumpet playing, the notes echoing off buildings, traveling through the humid night air. She thought about the old pianist's words that music is stubborn, that it survives. New Orleans had survived too. Fires and floods, yellow fever and hurricanes, economic hardship and cultural change. And through it all, the music continued, evolving but enduring, the soundtrack of a city that refused to give up. The April night was gentle, and she could feel the weight of history in the air. The French and Spanish colonial past, the African cultural traditions, the birth of jazz, the ongoing struggle for equity and preservation. All of it present, all of it part of what made New Orleans both beautiful and complicated. She thought about the man in Treme, about his 72 years in the neighborhood, about his insistence that newcomers respect what came before, about the pianist's 50 years of playing, finding new things in old songs, about the server explaining how Katrina's effects still rippled through the city almost 2 decades later. New Orleans demanded something of its visitors: attention, respect, a willingness to engage with complexity rather than just consuming the fun parts. You couldn't fully appreciate the music without understanding where it came from. You couldn't enjoy the food without recognizing the cultural mix that created it. You couldn't love the city without acknowledging its pain. The street below was quiet now, just the sound of the street sweeper and the distant trumpet. Lyla sat on the balcony, held by the warm night and the weight of the day's discoveries, grateful for the chance to see New Orleans like this away from the crowds, when the city revealed itself more honestly, more completely, when there was space to listen and learn and begin to understand what made this impossible, resilient, musical city so unlike anywhere else in the world.